The top stories tonight in Y News. Russian firm Gamaleya Institute will apply for emergency use authorization of its COVID-19 vaccine Sputnik V in the Philippines.
Health experts in the country are monitoring new COVID-19 variants detected in South Africa and Malaysia.
2 policemen died in a fire incident in Camp Crame early this morning. The National Bureau of Investigation conducts its parallel investigation into the cause of the death of flight attendant Christine Dacera.
The Manila Police District warns that violators of health and safety protocols during the commemoration of this year's Traslacion will face arrest.
And Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has blocked U.S. President Donald Trump from his platforms indefinitely following a pro-Trump attack on the U.S. Capitol this week. Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Friday, January 8, 2021. I am Harleen Delgado.
Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world. I am Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am Mariela Toza.
First in the news. Russia's Gamaleya Research Institute joins other vaccine manufacturers in applying for emergency use authorization or EUA of its vaccine Sputnik V in the country. Rosalie Cos explains why.
The Department of Science and Technology, or DOST, revealed that the Gamaleya Institute of Russia, developer of COVID-19 vaccine known as Sputnik V, will no longer hold its clinical trials in the Philippines. However, it will push through with its emergency use authorization or EUA application for their vaccine.
Itong linggo lang na ito, they informed us na hindi na po sila formally informed ang DOST at saka po ang technical group on evaluation na hindi na wini-withdraw na po nila yung kanilang application for clinical trial. Rather, they will apply for EUA na lang po.
Based on reports, more than 1 million people in Russia got vaccinated with Sputnik V after receiving a registration certificate from the Russian Ministry of Health last August 2020. It is now being distributed in Argentina, Belarus, and other countries. Meanwhile, according to DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, vaccine manufacturers have an option to conduct their clinical trials in the Philippines or to apply for an EUA instead.
Yung decision whether itutuloy nila yung clinical trials or hindi ay nandun po yung sa kumpanya na gumagawa ng bakuna, pero pwede silang dumiretso sa FDA either for an EUA or for actually the approval of their product to be marketed.
Aside from Gamaleya, AstraZeneca also withdrew its clinical trials in the Philippines. However, it has already applied an EUA in the country as well as Pfizer. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The country's health experts are now weighing on reports of adverse effects of potential COVID-19 vaccines that are to be approved in the country. Aiko Miguel will tell us why live. Aiko, what are these vaccines and the reported side effects?
Yes, Arlene, good evening. 73 adverse reactions or side effects have been discovered by Shanghai-based vaccine expert Paulina on the COVID-19 vaccine of Chinese National Pharmaceutical Group Corporation Sinopharm. These effects Lina found out when he read the Sinopharm's instruction manual. Some of the adverse reactions that may occur when vaccinated of Sinopharm's COVID vaccine are headache, high blood pressure, loss of sight and taste, delayed menstruation, and urinary incontinence. Because of this, Lina says that Sinopharm's vaccine can be considered as the most unsafe vaccine in the world. Last month, there were also reports that Pfizer-BioNTech's vaccines caused allergic reaction on the first two vaccinees to healthcare workers in United Kingdom. According to Food and Drug Administration, Harleen, part of the process to approve a vaccine is to check the adverse reactions to assure vaccines' safety and efficacy. Here is FDA's Director General, Dr. Eric Domingo.
Ito rin yung advantage din na nauuna sila doon sa mga pumunta sa ibang bansa na mga nakapag-order na or nakabayad na or sa mga country of origin nila, they usually do it. Magagamit natin ito as batayan sa approval or disapproval, or if we approve, para makapag-set tayo din ng conditions or warnings in case kailangan na siyang gamitin dito sa atin.
Harleen, currently there are 3 vaccine manufacturers that have submitted their clinical trial application in the country. Janssen of Johnson & Johnson's clinical trial application was approved last December 28, 2020 and will start this month. Sinovac's application is being reviewed. Just tonight, China's Clover Biopharmaceuticals clinical trial application has also been approved by the FDA. These 3 potential vaccines have no reported side effects as of yet. Pfizer-BioNTech also has reported allergic reaction to some vaccines. It has been included in WHO's listing of vaccines and has received EUAs or the Emergency Use Authorization application in other countries. FDA's decision is set to be released by January 14. Australia's AstraZeneca and Russia's Gamaleya had submitted their emergency use authorization last January 6, 2021. Both manufacturers have received EUAs in other countries, and according to the Department of Health, they are strictly monitoring all reports in other countries of vaccines' effects. Here is Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, the spokesperson of the Department of Health.
Pong lalabas talaga ng mga ganitong mga ebidensya maybe or just articles across the globe kasi sinusubukan po itong mga bakuna in other countries. So talagang marami po. Pero one thing that I can assure everybody, pag pumasok po ang isang manufacturer ng vaccine dito, yung bakuna na dala-dala nila, i-evaluate po natin ulit.
Experts in the country, Harleen, are also considering the reported 73 side effects caused by Sinopharm's vaccine and other reports that could possibly emerge on other potential COVID-19 vaccines.
When a specific vaccine manufacturer applies here in FDA, for example, for their EUA, lahat po ng dokumento na yan, even this apparent 73 adverse reactions will be reviewed and evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. Pag nakita natin na hindi siya sukat, it's not going to be appropriate and will not be safe for our population, hindi po natin siya bibigyan itong authority na ito. So hindi po kailangang mangamba ang ating mga kababayan dahil meron po tayong proseso para ma-evaluate at ma-check itong mga apparent na mga reports na may mga adverse reactions and the other side effects na nire-report. Ma-check po yan ng ating Food and Drug Administration.
Harleen, currently there is no conclusion yet whether what is considered the safest COVID-19 vaccine because they are still undergoing evaluation by experts in different parts of the world. On the other hand, Harleen, the World Health Organization believes that COVID-19 vaccine's efficacy being developed will not be affected by arising reports of new COVID-19 variants.
The kinds of changes that there are being seen in these variants are not felt to be likely to change the impact of the vaccines. But this is we're in a dynamic space right now, and unless we have information, that we'll get more information, but there's no reason to believe at this point that there should be any impact on the vaccines.
And that is the latest live. Back to you, Harleen.
Thank you, Aiko Miguel, for those updates.
With polls suggesting that a significant proportion of Filipinos are skeptical about the safety of a coronavirus vaccine, a mental health professional gives her advice for government officials on how to build trust. Rosalie Cos reports.
Clinical psychologist Dr. Camille Garcia believes an effective information dissemination about the safety of COVID-19 vaccines will help the government's vaccination program. She adds media networks will play a major part on this.
Yun talagang tama yung information dissemination. Siguro kahit sa kayong mismo mga nasa network, malaki ang tulong nyo kung kayo mismo talagang maghikayat. At the same time, siguro kahit paano makita nila na hindi over budget sana mas ipakita nila na epektibo siya, yung napaka-minimal ng side effects. At the same time, makakatulong kung sasabihin natin na hindi siya yung may garantiya na kahit papaano yung mahihirap ay mabigyan ng pagkakataon na mabigyan itong vaccine na to.
According to Science and Technology Secretary Fortunato de la Peña, there are particular government agencies which are responsible for the demand generation of the vaccine as well as the information dissemination, particularly the Presidential Communications Operations Office and the Department of Health. This following the survey results of Pulse Asia research that 47% or almost half of Filipino adults are not willing to be vaccinated against the coronavirus disease. The main reason is the safety of the COVID-19 vaccines, while some other reasons cited are the vaccines may not be free. Vaccination is not needed to combat COVID-19 and the vaccines might be expensive. Pulse Asia Research Survey was done from November 23 to December 2, 2020. Meanwhile, only 32% of Filipinos expressed their willingness to be vaccinated, while 21% are unsure about their decision. The unwillingness to get vaccinated are high among Class E or poorest sector of the respondents, as well as in Luzon and Visayas. Meanwhile, the Department of Science and Technology explained that effective vaccination is necessary to combat the pandemic.
Importante nga kasi para tayo magkaroon ng mataas na confidence na hindi nakakalat, magkaroon ng tinatawag na herd immunity. At ayon sa sinasabi sa amin ng mga nakakaalam ay ganda sana kung at least 60% ng ating populasyon ay mapakunahan.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Department of Health said it is monitoring 2 more variants of the virus that causes COVID-19, aside from the rapidly transmissible variant sweeping the United Kingdom. Aiko Miguel explains why.
The Department of Health is now monitoring other COVID-19 variants reported in other countries like in South Africa and Malaysia. According to Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, a genome sequencing is performed to determine what kind of variant a sample belongs.
Whatever types of variants that are existing in this genome that you have tested, makikita nyo po dyan. Kaya marami na po sigurong na-identify.
The DOH also says experts have been sequencing sample in other regions to assure there are no other variants are existing in the Philippines aside from the D614G.
The initial 300 plus samples that were tested by the Philippine Genome Center were just initial. This is a continuing surveillance system that we have established already. Actually, kahapon po nakausap na natin ang regional offices natin. We're getting samples from the different regions, specifically in Mindanao, in Visayas, because we would like to see if in these areas meron din po tayo makita at ma-whole genome sequence natin, baka sakali ay ma-determine natin kung may variant tayo dito sa mga lugar na to.
Meanwhile, the DOH says contact tracing has also been done on the close contacts of the Filipina passenger from Cagayan Valley, whose result in Hong Kong tested positive of the UK variant. According to the DOH, they are still waiting for the result of the genome sequencing from their swab samples.
Naipadala na po itong mga specimens na ito sa Philippine Genome Center. They are currently quarantined and being monitored. Ito pong mga close contacts sa Solano, Cagayan. Dito rin naman po sa Maynila, dahil alam natin yung individual ay nagpunta sa Maynila at meron kasi siyang manning agency dito. And lahat po na naging close contact niya ay natuntun naman po natin. They were all swabbed and all specimens were sent to the Philippine Genome Center for RT-PCR and the genome sequencing.
The DOH once again reminds the public whatever variant is existing in other countries, minimum public health standards should still be observed. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue.
We serve the people. We give glory to God.
COVID-19 cases in the country increased to 483,852 after the Department of Health or DOH detected 1,776 new infections today. The DOH has said most of the new cases were found in Bulacan with 99, Davao City with 96, Quezon City with 83, Rizal with 80, and Laguna with 64. There were 285 patients who have recovered, while 8 more fatalities were reported, increasing the total number of recoveries and deaths in the country at 449,330 and 9,364 respectively. The number of active cases or those who are still ill is at 25,158. Meanwhile, DOH Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere said that the department has suspended 5 laboratories for failing to submit their COVID-19 data on time. Undersecretary Vergere has urged all COVID-19 laboratories nationwide to submit their data to the DOH system on time. For the third year in a row, Japan's passport tops the Henley Index, an annual ranking of the world's passports by international access, the ability to enter foreign countries without a visa. Early Briones reports.
The Henley Passport Index, which analyzes the power of our passports, has now released their 2021 list, and coming in first is the Japanese passport, which allows holders to travel to 191 travel destinations. Second in place is the Singaporean passport with 190, and third is tied between South Korea and Germany with 189 travel destinations. And joined fourth on 188 countries are the passports of Finland, Italy, Luxembourg, and Spain. They are followed by Austria and Denmark in fifth on 187 countries. Sixth spot is occupied by France, Ireland, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Sweden, with their passports enjoying visa-free access to 186 countries. And sharing seventh place with the UK and the USA are Belgium, New Zealand, Norway, and Switzerland. The rest of the top 10 is made up of Australia, the Czech Republic, Greece, and Malta in 8th, Canada in 9th, and Hungary in 10th. The Philippines has dropped to 77th place with 66, as in 2020 it was ranked 74th, also with 66 travel destinations. The Henley Passport Index points out that Asia-Pacific countries appear to dominate the top part of its ranking in 2021. Explaining that this is a relatively new phenomenon. This year's ranking does not take into account any temporary travel restrictions that may have been brought in as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Dr. Christian H. Callen, the group chairman of the Henley and Partners, which produces the index, says that the latest ranking provides an opportunity to reflect on the extraordinary upheaval that characterized 2020. He explained just a year ago, all the indications were that the rates of global mobility would continue to rise, that travel freedom would increase, and that holders of powerful passports would enjoy more access than ever before. The global lockdown negated this glowing projection, and as restrictions begin to lift, the results from the latest index are a reminder of what passport power really means in a world upended by the pandemic. Early Briones, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
And for those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook.
2 policemen died while 2 others were injured in a fire that razed a compound occupied by elite Special Action Forces or SAF personnel inside the Philippine National Police National Headquarters in Camp Crame, Quezon City today. The fatalities were identified as Police Staff Sergeant Nicole Hamos-Hos, a staff trooper, and Police Master Sergeant Amado Ormilon Jr., a responding base fire personnel. Police Captain Victorioso Yulde of the PNP staff, and Police Staff Sergeant Jesus Apil of the Directorate for Personnel and Records Management, or DPRM, were injured but are now in stable condition at the PNP General Hospital inside Camp Crame. The fire broke out at the motor pool of the PNP staff at the Transportation and Maintenance Division facility of the Logistics Support Services around 2 a.m. The fire was put out at 3:06 in the morning. Fire investigators have conducted a follow-up investigation to determine the cause of the fire and the extent of damage it caused. The National Bureau of Investigation is conducting a separate and parallel probe into the death of Christine Dacera, as the police probe into the flight attendant's demise comes under increased scrutiny. Dante Amento tells us why. Live. Dante, go ahead.
Diego, Justice Secretary Minardo Guevara has ordered the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI, to conduct a parallel investigation on the death of flight attendant Christine Dacera last January 1 in a hotel in Makati City, and if evidence warrants, to file appropriate charges against all persons found responsible and involved of the crime. The NBI was also directed to submit report within 10 days on the progress of its investigation to the Justice Secretary. Meanwhile, the DOJ National Prosecution Service assures to have fair investigation on the case. Even the 11 respondents will be given enough time to prove their innocence and allow them to submit their counter affidavit. The prosecution also asks their full cooperation on the preliminary investigation on January 13.
Because we are also guaranteeing their rights, their substantive due process and procedural due process. They are assured of the fair and efficient and the fast resolution of the case coming from our City Prosecution Office of Makati.
The forensic team of the National Bureau of Investigation is assisting with the investigation done by the PNP. The PNP, meanwhile, is optimistic to have supporting evidences that can help resolve the case.
Bukod po sa mga testimony ng mga witnesses, mapafirma po ito kung meron pong corroborating evidence coming from the pieces of or findings galing sa mga forensic examiners. Sila po kasi ang magbibigay ng kadahilanan ng exact science na tinatawag kung ang isang krimen nga po ay sadya pong naisagawa po.
Meanwhile, Diego, the DOJ prosecution adds it is willing to accept the separate autopsy being done by Christine's family and parallel investigation by other law enforcement agencies. And that's the latest live. Back to you, Diego.
Thank you, Dante Amento, reporting live.
Meanwhile, National Capital Region Police Office, or NCRPO Director Vicente Danao, explained that Christine Dacera's body was immediately embalmed as part of their new protocol amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Leia Ilagan will tell us why.
Philippine National Police spokesperson, Police Brigadier General Ildi Brandi Osana, confirmed to the program Get It Straight with Daniel Razon that the body of Christine Dacera was embalmed before an initial autopsy was done by police. The medical legal of the PNP who conducted the embalming of Christine's body is now under investigation for procedural lapses in handling evidence of a possible crime incident.
Ito po ay isang bagay na iniimbestigahan po ngayon ng ating kapulisan, both criminally and administratively. At posibleng managot po dito yung medical legal officer for not complying with the procedures po.
But NCRPO Chief Police Brigadier General Vicente Danao Jr. explained that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, a new protocol is being implemented wherein an immediate embalming is administered on a dead body before the conduct of an autopsy.
Because of the new COVID protocol, especially in times of pandemic, meron po kasing bagong guidelines ngayon na pag yung cause of death, okay, lalo na sa panahon ng pandemic, dapat imbalsamuhin muna bago i-ano.
But Director Danao would have prepared the other way.
Pero Sabi ko nga, be as it may, ako I would rather sana muna yung parang sa normal times pa rin, wherein dapat muna i-autopsy muna para sa akin para sa akin. Kasi mas na-preserve yung evidences at hand on that time sana.
Earlier, the Dacera family have filed an administrative complaint against Major Michael Sarmiento for ordering the embalming before the conduct of an autopsy examination and without the consent of the family. The autopsy report showed that Dacera died of ruptured aortic aneurysm, but the family insists that the victim was raped prior to her death. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Department of Tourism confirms receipt of a City Garden Grand Hotel's response from the agency's show cause order to explain why its accreditation should not be revoked in a light of a death of a flight attendant in one of its rooms. Asher Kadapan Jr. tells us why live. Yes, Asher, please go ahead.
Ariel, the Department of Tourism is also conducting its further investigation connected to the death of Christine Dacera. DOT Regional Director for National Capital Region Woodrow Makiling said City Garden Grand Hotel claimed they did not accept guests for leisure purposes, while Dacera's group was staying in the establishment as permitted guests due to their jobs. Makiling said it is still the hotel management's duty to ensure that minimum health standards are observed since the property is being used as a quarantine center. The results of the investigation will be submitted to Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat if the agency should revoke City Garden Grand Hotel's license to operate as an accommodation establishment. Meanwhile, Pasay City Mayor Emmy Calixto Rubiano did her own personal inspection of staycation hotels in Pasay City today. The local chief executive to make sure accommodation establishments in the city are compliant in the guidelines set by the DOT.
Pagka dineclare ng Department of Tourism ang isang hotel as quarantine or isolation area, kailangan no staycation.
Mayor Emmy also assures that yesterday's incident where a returning Filipino under quarantine escaped from the hotel in Pasay serving as quarantine facility will not happen again. She reiterated to the management of accommodation establishments in her jurisdiction to adhere to the health protocols being implemented by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases, or IATF. Mariel?
Thank you, Asher Kadapan Jr. reporting live.
Based on World Health Organization's 2018 data, there are 3 million deaths recorded every year globally from harmful use of alcohol. According to lifestyle medicine specialist Dr. Dex Macalintal, one of the major causes of alcohol poisoning is binge drinking, which is when a person drinks large amounts of alcohol in a short span of time.
Tingnan natin to in the sense na lahat ng sobra masama. To satisfy binge drinking na criteria, kinakailangan makaubos yung tao, kunyari lalaki, makaubos ng around 5 to 6 drinks in 2 hours. And then sa babae naman, around 4 to 5 drinks within 2 hours then.
Dr. Macalintal says too much alcohol intake could pose symptoms such as confusion, vomiting, slow breathing, seizures, and low body temperature. It can also cause hypertension, which could trigger abdominal aortic aneurysm. If a person shows symptoms of alcohol poisoning, according to Dr. Macalintal, he or she must be brought to the emergency room and seek immediate medical care. While waiting for the responders, do not leave an unconscious person. Try to keep the person in a sitting position to prevent choking or vomiting, which may block the airways.
Kinakailangan nakaupo yung pasyente. No? Iupo natin yung pasyente para hindi pumunta yung sinuka doon sa daanan ng hangin, no? Iwasan na nakahiga. So try to keep the person awake at all times. So kausapin mo, tap mo sa shoulder, no? Kumuha kayo ng ballpen, tapos yung thumb o kaya yung daliri ay i-pinch ninyo, no? Para magkaroon sila ng pain signals para magising, no?
Dr. Macalintal advises to avoid alcohol poisoning, stop drinking alcoholic beverages. He also encourages parents to communicate with their children and educate them about the dangers of alcohol consumption.
This is very deadly kung talagang hindi maaagapan. But this could be preventable sapagkat ano ba yung pinagmulan? Pag-inom ng sobra. So, huwag uminom ng sobra. Or actually, huwag na nga uminom kasi wala namang mabuting may dudulot yan sa ating katawan.
In other news, the Manila Police District or MPD announced that violators of health and safety protocols during the commemoration of this year's Traslasyon will face arrest. Authorities said they will practice maximum tolerance in dealing with devotees and will remind them to follow safety protocols, including wearing of footwear. Several devotees are known to go barefoot when visiting Quiapo Church during Traslasyon. The Manila Public Employment Office will also distribute face masks to devotees if they are not wearing one. The MPD said they will resort to arrest if devotees will continue to practice unruly behavior, such as refusing to abide by the minimum health and safety protocols, or if they are caught doing petty crimes such as snatching. The MPD added that they will deploy personnel around the area to monitor the devotees. Minors aged 15 and below, as well as senior citizens, will not be allowed in the area. Despite the cancellation of the massive procession due to the COVID-19 pandemic, authorities still expect devotees to travel to Quiapo Church. Devotees are also encouraged to commemorate Traslasyon in the safety of their homes to avoid the further spread of the COVID-19 virus. Curfew in Manila City is still in effect from 12 a.m. to 3 a.m.
For those watching us on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on the right side of your screens and ring the bell for notifications. You may also follow us on Facebook.
The Department of Agriculture said it is initially targeting to produce 20.47 million metric tons of palay this year, assuring the country has enough supply or enough rice supply despite the millions worth of damages to agriculture brought by the typhoons last year. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Agriculture Secretary William Dar attributes various programs of his department for the bounty harvest last year despite the calamities and pandemic that affected the country. Based on the record of the Department of Agriculture, the local production of rice reached 19.44 million metric tons, which is higher than the 19.27 million metric tons recorded in 2017. DA said that one of the programs that helped farmers produce more is the Rice Competitiveness and Enhancement Fund under the Rice Tarification Law. DA's projection for the local production of rice for the year 2021 is 20.47 million metric tons, while the projection for rice importation this year is 1.69 million metric tons. The harvest last year represents the more than 90% of the total requirement of the country. The Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura emphasized the need for improvement in the local rice production in order not to depend in importation. This is after the news that Vietnam will now import rice from India. The Philippines is getting more than 90% of its import requirement from Vietnam.
Yung mga dumadaan na bagyo rito, dumadaan din ng bagyo dun sa area na yan. So, we expect na kung bumagsak ang production din nila, they have to buy from other places.
But Agriculture Secretary William Dar clarifies that the grain Vietnam bought from India are used for feed manufacturing and breweries. Dar adds that Vietnam can still export more than 7 million metric tons of rice for a higher price. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Following the pro-Trump attack on the U.S. Capitol, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg recently announced that Facebook would indefinitely ban President Donald Trump from its platforms. Mavian Dog will tell us why.
Facebook's decision to ban President Trump from Facebook and Instagram came as their approach to moderate the president's posts in response to the violent scenes at the U.S. Capitol this week. The posts deleted from President Trump's Facebook included a video where he falsely claimed that the U.S. election results were fraudulent, and a text post which sought to justify the rioters' attack and for them to remember that day. Zuckerberg posted a statement on Facebook saying that President Trump's use of this platform incites violent insurrection against a democratically elected government. Therefore, they are extending the block placed on his Facebook and Instagram accounts indefinitely and for at least the next 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, expressed her call in a news conference to either invoke the 25th Amendment or move forward with impeachment to remove President Trump from office. 3 members of the House Judiciary Committee are also circulating an impeachment resolution as they call President Trump's actions as willfully inciting violence against the government of the United States. Mavian Dog, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
China has placed 11 million people in the northern city of Zhejiang under lockdown after more than 100 new COVID cases were confirmed there. Marvi Delfin will tell us why.
Residents in Shijiazhuang, the capital of Hubei province in China, are now banned from leaving the city and schools have been closed after 120 new COVID-19 cases were confirmed yesterday. These figures are the highest that mainland China has seen in more than 5 months. 22 new cases were also confirmed elsewhere in the country. Travel has been halted, and many inbound and outbound flights have been cancelled. Even the postal service in and out of the northern city has been suspended. More than 5,000 testing sites have been set up so every resident can be tested when new clusters appear, even if they seem relatively small, as part of a strict protocol to contain outbreaks. According to Vice Mayor Meng Jianhong, 5 hospitals in Shijiazhuang have been cleared for admissions of COVID-19 patients, with 3 others on standby as caseload is expected to rise. In a meeting on Tuesday with provincial authorities, National Health Commission Director Ma Xiaowei said the current epidemic situation in Hubei was severe and still developing. While Mr. Feng Zijian, Deputy Director of China's Center for Disease Control and Prevention, said that the virus spreading in Hubei was not local to China and was possibly linked to variants in Europe. And so, international travelers arriving in Beijing must quarantine for 21 days, which is 7 more than previously required. The first 14 days must be spent at a government-designated facility. The additional week can be completed at home with approval from local authorities. The lockdown comes just weeks ahead of the Chinese New Year travel rush, as Beijing is racing to head off any possibility of super spreading, and is reportedly aiming to vaccinate 50 million people before the holiday next month. Marvi Delfin, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Australia is set to embark on a mass audit of the country's koala population, using drones and detection dogs to count the species. Early Briones will tell us why live. Early, go ahead.
Diego, the Australian Koala Foundation is fearing that the population of koalas is sliding to extinction. In 2016, the number of koalas totaled to 329,000. However, due to the annual bushfires that Australia suffers from, this number has decreased drastically. To this current day, the koala population of Australia is only less than 80,000, and it could also be possible that there are around 43,000 koalas remaining. A mass audit of the number of koalas is set to be conducted with the use of drones and detection dogs, and an annual reporting of koalas will be set in ministerial meetings. This effort is a part of the 18 million Australian dollar project to protect the marsupials of Australia from threats like grazing of habitats, change in climate, illness, and death by cars. The Australian Koala Foundation states that if the koala reduction of numbers continue to decline, it faces a high risk of extinction. It was commented by the Australian Environment Minister Susan Ley regarding the mass audit that cost 2 million Australian dollars that there is information lacking in the whereabouts of koalas, how they are doing, and what is best for them to recover. In Australia's bushfires last summer, which Prime Minister Scott Morrison named as Black Summer, it was said that 60,000 koalas faced deaths, injuries, and relocation. In June, it was concluded in a New South Wales parliamentary inquiry that koalas in the state of New South Wales would face extinction by 2050 if the protection of the species and their habitat was not enforced. To counteract this, the Worldwide Fund for Nature plans to increase the koala population of Eastern Australia to double its current number by 2050. The organization's protection plan includes a trial of drones to disperse seed of eucalyptus tree, which provide both food and shelter for koalas, and the establishment of a fund to encourage landowners to create koala safe havens. Diego?
Thank you, Early Briones, reporting live from Australia.
Tesla's and Spacex entrepreneur Elon Musk has become the world's richest person on Thursday as his net worth surpasses $185 billion after Tesla's share price increased. He takes the top spot from Jeff Bezos, who is the founder of Amazon and holds the title since 2017. On Wednesday, Mr. Musk's electric company Tesla has hit a market value of $700 billion for the first time as his company surged in value this year. That makes the car company worth more than Toyota, Volkswagen, Hyundai, GM, and Ford combined. Tesla's share price has increased more than sevenfold in the past year, which has sent Mr. Musk's fortune rocketing, putting him on the top slot. And those are the reasons behind the news, January 8, 2021. I am Harleen Delgado.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am Maria Latoza, sitting in for William Theo, live from Perth, Australia.
Because we need to know. We will always ask why. I'm Angelo Castro III. We serve the people. We give glory to God.